As the lights go down and the screen comes up, all you see is this thick fog. As the camera pushes us through, these little wisps of haze break across the lens. I can't quite make anything out yet. But slowly in the dim light of, I don't know if it's early morning, late evening, silhouettes start to appear. Old twisted trees must have been dead now for centuries. Limbs and branches all knotted together, nothing green, nothing living. In the midst of this fog, the camera takes us through, up and under. And there I can make out a small gate. It's been left open so long, the weeds have grown through all the lattice work. And we effortlessly glide inside. The first one passes without me realizing what it is. As the second silhouette comes up, I realize it's a tombstone. Passed by another, and then another. And then that little music comes from the back of the theater. And I don't know what's about to happen, but one hand is frozen in the popcorn with extra butter, the other one holding onto my Diet Coke because they cancel each other out, and I'm mesmerized by the screen. On the edge of a small beaten path, a lone silhouette sits with the sun that is starting to fade, a fog that with the little cliff breeze starts to part. I see him. Right hand turning, jostling something, I can't tell. But as the camera passes to his right, the last rays of light on him, for the first time we get a glimpse. His eyes are wild, his hair is long and matted. He's throwing a large rock in his hand, or a rock that has a sharp, jagged edge on one side. And you see the muscles and tendons in his forearm start to bulge to the surface as he tightens his grip and pulls it to his chest. As he breaks the flesh, he starts driving it across his torso. As the flesh opens, ribbons of blood start running down, and for the first time I see on his arm and on his chest, this isn't the first time, he's been carved on by himself or others. And somewhere in the breastplate, as if he wants to drive it further to end it, he pauses and it shakes, but bone won't give way to rock. His hand opens, the bloody tool now tumbles down the small cliff that he is sitting on, and for the first time he sees them. Someone has dared approached his graveyard. And like a flash, he takes off and he starts running. More animalistic than human, arms that are flailing wildly. And from the back, the camera chases and catch up. And for the first time, we realize he doesn't have a stitch of clothing on. And his back has been laid open time and time again. This he couldn't possibly have done to himself. He doesn't look for a path or smooth stones. He runs right through the thistles and thicket and the cacti. And there, where it's first possible to get off the cliff, he runs down to the stony beach and he runs. And he screams, "What do you want from me?" And the hair on the back of my neck stands up. My wife's got her head buried behind my shoulder at this time. And she's all, "Tell me when it's over." And I go, "It's not going to be over." She's all, "You said this would be a love story." I said, "It is. I love this story." He throws his knees into the rocks as if there's no pain left in nerve endings. And once again, throwing up his hand, he screams. The small band of men that have dared entered his territory are caught completely by surprise, except for one. One. And the lens of Scripture will take us in to this dramatic scene of good versus evil. And yet we will find there's a far distance between first place and second. and what this little group of men who have just pulled their ship on shore have been through, well, this is going to be a day like no other day. To get all of it, we have to pause in how we usually do church, story at a time. Tonight, we're going to hit all four the way they were meant to be read, in sequential order, and step back. And maybe in the midst of seeing this story, my hope, my prayer is you just may find yours. Because I go back to this book, not because I'm a fan of reading. I'm not a great reader. Not because I love studying. I hate studying. Not because I love anthropology and ancient civilizations. No, they're all dead and I could care less. I go back to this book not even for great theology and depth. I go back to this book because if it truly is the Word of God, and it is timeless and eternal, because it is written through humans by a God who is timeless and eternal, then the way he dealt with people back then is the way he deals with us tonight. And the only reason I go back to these stories is because I'm in desperate need of finding mine. And this is going to be a ride. If you got a Bible, open it to Mark chapter 4. We're covering a lot of ground. While you're turning there, I've always found it best just to admit the elephant in the room, to put your insecurities out in front so everyone knows them, and then you can just move on. Your phenomenal leader, Paige, met me in the back and said, "How you feeling?" And I said, "Have you ever gone into an incredibly large room of human beings, knowing for a fact that you are the most uncool person there?" And she looked at me and I said, "Of course you haven't, but that's how I'm doing. I don't fit this room. I'm so dad, it's ridiculous." I just even looked down. I'm like, "You got like somewhat nice shorts with a freaking sushi shirt that I don't even know what it says." "Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Keep trying." But it's beyond that. It's beyond that. And that's out of the way. I am somebody's dad. I'm three people's dad. So I guess what I'm going to try to attempt to do today is use whatever gift God has given me to do story into his story, not mine, to attempt for you to see your story. Because as a dad, I really, really want you to get this, kids. And maybe I'll just do that tonight. I'm just going to call you kids, not to demean you. You're grown adults, you're young adults. But the problem is my two oldest are 20 and 18. They're kids. They're mine. At 42 and 40, they're going to be kids. At 62 and 60, they're going to be kids. So indulge an old man who feels inadequately out of place in a room this cool tonight, who watched so many of you walk in, and I'm like, they don't even make those clothes in my size. And just go, "Kids, Dad or your crazy uncle who just got paroled and found Jesus in prison is here to say, I really want you to get this." That's probably a better picture than Dad. That's good. Here we go. Enough. Start the clock again. Oh, we're doing 4 stories. We're in Mark chapter 4, verse 35. That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let's go over to the other side." Now, leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There was also other boats with them, and a furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. And Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion, and the disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care that we're going to drown?" He got up and he rebuked the wind and the waves. "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. And he said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this that even the wind and the waves obey him. And the story starts simply enough. Let's leave the crowd. Let's do something. And Jesus is going to constantly try to take those that truly follow him out of the crowd. And I would love to do that tonight, kids, but I don't know which one of you are truly following him. I don't know which part of this boat says, man, I'm sold out, I'm dedicated. I've already left my nets and my boats and I followed. See, the guys with him have done that. The guys with him knew they were called to follow him, but they also knew that the moment they were called to follow Jesus, they were called to leave behind. They were called to leave behind. And they left their boats, they left their nets. See, we as Christians often think we're called to, oh, you got to leave sin, you got to leave sin. There's no sin in boats and nets. I really want to have a boat one day. I can say that. I'm a pastor. I really want to have a boat one day. That's not sin. See, I can't say, I really want to have an affair one day. You're like, you can't say that. Why? Because that's sin. There's no sin in having a boat. There's no sin in having rods and reels. I'm a diehard fisherman. One of the only things better than catching fish is eating fish, hence the sushi. And so I love this. But they're holding on to their hopes, their dreams, their plans. And so many of you right now are in a place where you're just holding on to your nets and boats. Because all of you are in that place right now where you're carving out who you're going to be, what you're going to do, what is your vocation, how do you make money, what is it you want for your livelihood. And I'm going to tell you, one of the main things that are keeping you from following Jesus is holding on to your dreams. Because it's his dreams for you aren't your dreams. You're in big doo-doo right now. You're following Jesus, but you're asking him to bless your dreams. And he might not bless your dreams because they're not his. Do you see what's happening here? So the call to follow Jesus is a call by definition to leave behind. And then school and ministry, you got this today. It's also a call to what? I spent 2 hours with you. Come on, I'm seriously, everyone's about to get to zero. A task, a purpose. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. You're called to a new purpose. You're called to a new task. So he left the crowd and he takes those that are in, those that said, look, I don't know if my dreams are your dreams, but I'm holding mine loosely now. They're up to you. I'm leaving it. What do you want me to be and do? And I know it means a new purpose in my life. And he left the crowd and he took that group with him because he wants to show them something new about him. Here's the problem of following Jesus. If you do it, he's going to ask you to continue. Here's the problem of faithfulness. If you're faithful, he's going to call your number again. He's a phenomenal coach. He's a great coach. And when coach calls your number and you perform, coach will call your number again. And I want to take you and show you a different side of me that the crowd doesn't get. When they get out in the lake, the serious storm, the squall picks up. Now we have seasoned fishermen in the boat that are freaking out. It said they were frightened. Don't you care? We're going to die. And man, when I get to heaven, this is one of those I want to rent because I want to watch what happened. In the midst of the storm and the waves and all of that, he just stands up and he doesn't look at them. He speaks to nature. Be calm. Like, how do you go from hurricane to... And then I love the Bible said, then they were frightened. Okay, they were afraid, now they're frightened. I was afraid because we're gonna die. Now you just scared the bejeebies out of me. Who is this? This isn't a what. This isn't a religion. This isn't a philosophy. This isn't a new idea. This isn't self-help. This isn't a better way of thinking about yourself. Who is this? That nature obeys? You started this incredible series in the image of God. Your first question, and I love what Paige did last week in defining that. One of your first questions got to be then, who is this? If this is who I'm made in the image of, who is this? And even those that have journeyed with to chapter 4 at this time are blown away and scared spitless at the raw power of God in the flesh that can speak to nature. And nature screams to a halt to obey him. Who is this? Oh, I'm glad you asked that question because we're about to find out. Oh, I'm going to stay up here for what? Yeah. You clap because a guy can't make that big of a step more than twice in a night. It's like, yeah, give him a walker. They went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. And when Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an evil spirit came from the tombs to meet him. We just saw this guy. This man lived in the tombs and had no one who could bind him anymore, not even with a chain, for he had often been chained hand and foot. But he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. Why? I mean, why would demons want to, torture this dude? Why would Satan give a rip about some naked dude that lived in the tombs? And if you got him to that point, why wouldn't, if it's evil spirits and if this is real and if demons are real, why wouldn't demons just leave him alone? Like, we jacked up your life for a week, good luck living that down, and they just move on to someone else. Why? Because of page 2. In the very beginning of how your story started and mine, science will tell us for a fact, there was a vast cosmic explosion that's the very epicenter of everything we know, see, and do. Even today, outer galaxies are still spreading out in one direction from a big bang. Now, we can't explain the Big Bang. We don't know how a vast explosion of absolute nothingness. There's not like there were two things to explode or run into each other. There's no things, because things have to be created. So it's an absolute vacuum of nothingness, exploded planetary life. But we know that's a fact. That's page 2 of the Bible. Page 1 just explains the Big Bang. There was a voice of God that spoke things into being. There's a designer behind the intricate design of life. There's a master artist behind the artistry of every sunset, every lagoon, every tropical paradise, every rainbow. There is a builder that we can somewhat see and understand by what he has built. There is creator, because we see creation. And the Bible and the science both agree firmly. The Bible just takes one step more and says, let me tell you what the bang was. It was a who, not a what. And if there is a creator, an artist, a builder of that size and magnitude, then there is purpose behind life that was set out. Page 2 says, you are no animal. You are no mammal. You are no mere part of creation. The very triune, 3-in-1 God said, let us make man and woman in our image. So in the image of God, we are made. Of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. God values relationship so much, he doesn't live without relationship. He doesn't exist outside of relationship. He himself has relationship of 3. Don't ask me more than that. I don't understand it. And you were created differently than creation. You are the epitome of creation, the pinnacle. You are made in the image of God. And if there is this God and good, and there is this evil, then this evil hates your dad. But what can Satan do against God? As we're about to see in our story, there's a huge gap between first and second place powers. So let's just say you hate me. Not you dislike me. I get that you dislike me. I talk too long. I do the same stories. I go over and over. I'm very simple. I'm kind of service. I don't know any big words. I'm not an intellectual. I'm not a scholar. I'm just a one-trick pony. I'm a storyteller. And you've heard them all before. But not because of that. You just hate me because we're walking by the plaza one day and you said hi and I was busy or just ignored you. I don't know. And for whatever reason, I didn't know that. I just ignored you. And you hate me because you know now I'm an arrogant You can fill in the blank, but it's church. I'll tell you outside. But you hate me. But it's the type of hatred where you want to hurt me. But here's the problem. Now that you have me in the room, you see my immense size and muscular stature. And one of the... There was no joke in that, folks. And you yourself has realized, oh, I can't do anything to him. Who do you go after? Selah, Karis, and Bear. Because they're made in my image. Those are mine. In fact, if you want to hurt them, do anything to me before you get to them. But I promise, if you go after them, anything that is left in this old chubby guy and everything that is loaded in my closet will come to bear against you. I promise a holy God that. I promise. It is my job to protect their mind. But you now know how to hurt me. When Paige set up last week that we are created in the image of God, did it dawn on you how much you have become hated? Now listen, if you're not part of God's kingdom, if he doesn't rule and reign in your life, so you're not part of his kingdom, you're just part of the world at this time, glad you're here. I hope you get a great glimpse of who this Jesus is tonight. But you're not a threat and you're really not a fear to him. You're not going to God. You don't have a relationship with God, so he can care less about you. But the moment you step over that line and say, God, I am yours, and he is now called Father, and he has adopted you to be son or daughter, oh, let me promise you put a target on your back. Jesus says this best in John 10:10. He says, I've come to give you not just life, but life abundantly. He goes, but the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Why do you feel like your joy is trying to be stolen from you? Why do you feel like your life and future is trying to be stolen from you? Why do you feel like hopes and dreams are being killed? Your family life is being killed. Your value, your self-worth is being killed. Why does it feel at times like the world is just out to destroy you? Because that's the plan. That's who you are. This entire series of being in the identity and life change, but we're in the Imago Dei, the image of God. This is who we are. You are hated because we have an enemy who could give a rip about you, but he hates our dad, and he can't touch dad, so he sees you. And he's got this guy exactly where he wants him. And I will constantly destroy and put in pain someone merely because they're an image, a replica of the God I hate. And crazy naked screaming dude in the tombs, that disrupts an entire territory. And that's good too. And we're about to see a final destiny and destruction on this. This is, by the way, when Peter's writing his book of the Bible in 1 Peter 5, he goes, listen, Christians, you really got to understand this. Kids, listen up, listen up. You've got to be alert and on guard because you have an enemy, the devil, who goes around like a snake. And you can outrun a snake. He goes, you have an enemy, the devil, who goes around like a howling coyote. Yeah, a coyote's like a skinny dog. What would be a better adjective or animal? Roaring lion. He should have written that because he did. 1 Peter 5, he says, you have an enemy, the devil, that prowls around like a roaring lion, searching for you to whom he may devour. It's not because you're that cool. It's not because you're that threatening. It's simply because you are creating the image of this God. That is page 2. There is a story of creation and you are part of it. The moment you stepped over the line and you gave your life to God, you became hated because now he calls you son and daughter. We have an enemy that can't do anything about dad, but man, he can do something about you. This is why he's trying to kill, steal, and destroy your sexuality. He's trying to kill, steal, and destroy any thought you have of having a family or a nucleus family, because the one you came from, your identity, your values, your self-worth, your body, your image, and he will use everything that you have done in the past to tell you how broken you already are so this doesn't apply to you. He will. This is the plan, and we're part of it. Now, don't get freaked out because you're like, oh, God, this is the scariest thing ever. On the way home, I'm going to have demons jump in the car. Watch the story. Yes, Satan's plan is to distort and destroy God's image. We are made in the image of God. And by the way, if we don't know where we're being attacked, you're already losing the battle. Christian, if you don't know where you're being attacked, you're already losing the battle. Every one of us should know our kryptonite. Dude, this is where I fall. This is where I fail. This is where I go. Don't give in. Now watch how this whole thing works. It's going to be good. So when this guy saw Jesus in verse 6 from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. We saw that in the film. And he shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me? Jesus, Son of the Most High God!" Yeah! Right, popcorn jumps, and I'm like, "Oh, swear to God that you won't torture me." For Jesus had just said to him, "Come out of this man, you evil spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." He's like, "Precious." Yeah. I'm watching this, I'm freaked out. I'm doing this whole thing. Disciples are now in the boat. Even though the boat's pulled up on the shore, they're all sitting in the boat. Jesus is the only one out there. This guy falls on his knees. He's screaming, "Don't torture me." Jesus unflinching, unmatched, unparalleled, unmitigated. "What is your name?" "And from within, my name is Legion." Because we are many. Everyone understands back then at this time, first century, is making reference to Roman legions. I have an army of demons. He begged Jesus again and again not to send him out of the area, and a large herd of pigs was feeding on a hillside nearby. The demons begged Jesus to send us among the pigs and allow us to go into them, and he gave them permission, and the evil spirits came out and they went into the pigs, and the herd, about 2,000 pigs in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake, and they were drowned. That's rather unfortunate for a bunch of pigs. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this to the townspeople and the countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man and told about the pigs as well. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begging to go with him, but Jesus did not let him. And he said, "Go home to your family and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." So the man went away and began to tell in the region of Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. And this voice from in says, "We're legion." And Jesus takes the demons, and by word he cast them into pigs. 2,000 pigs run down, and they jump into and they all float, because pigs don't swim, and they just bloat up, and they're there. Bunch of young teenagers, they're paid to watch pigs. You don't have to have much of an education to be a pig watcher. Kind of a smelly job. When they realized their job just jumped off a cliff, they all went running back to town, and they told the people, "By the way, this town is based on pig farming, and your entire farm just jumped into the sea. Guess what you don't have anymore? Cha-ching, income, job, everything. You're bankrupt." So the townspeople have got to come out and see what happened. What a crazy kids, bunch of pigs. How many pigs fell into the sea? And when they get out there, the sea is full of just bloated pigs. Jesus, naked demon Dan dude, is sitting there, clothed and in his right mind. And they take one look at all this and go, "What? Well, we don't know who you are, but you can get out of here." And Jesus goes, "Oh yeah? Watch this." And he rolls away. And as he starts to leave, Demon Dan runs up, grabs the front of the boat, and he starts to step in. And Jesus has to put his hand on his forehead and go, "Dude, where are you going?" "I'm going with you guys." "These guys here used to beat the crap out of me. I live in a tomb and I cut myself. I don't know who you are, but I'm going with you." And Jesus goes, "No, you got to go back home." And he's like, "I don't want to go back home. This is where this whole thing started." "I told my friends all the time, they're like, dude, our home is hell. And now look where it ended. I ended up with demons." "Well, you got to go tell everybody what I've done for you." "Well, I can't go with you." And Jesus is like, 1, 2, 3. "No, we got our 12. The book's written, man. We can't have 13. You got a bunch of upset town people, and Demon Dan just standing there like, "Well, what am I doing now?" And he's got to turn around. He's like, "Hey guys, sorry about all the pigs and everything, but it really wasn't me, man. I'm not gonna go home." Oh, this story is amazing. I don't drive home tonight afraid some demon's gonna run up next to me and jump in my window because I left it open a crack. Because I'm a child of God and I'm made in his image, and greater is he that is in me than he that's in the world. And if you think I would go after you if you took on one of my kids, I drive home secure knowing Dad's got this. And I don't know who you are and what you think you're going to do in my life, but you don't have to mess with me. You have no clue whose kid you're messing with. There's a power struggle of good versus evil, but people, let me promise you, it's not 1 versus 2. We had a little tiny basketball hoop in our backyard when the kids were small, and we'd go out and play. And it'd always be the 2 girls against me and Bear, because Bear was just the smallest, and he's just, I don't know if this is being recorded. He can't dribble or shoot, so. And if the score ever got out of hand, he'd just cry. And so to keep him out there, he was on my team. And I would just have him hold the basketball, and then I'd run around with him and push the girls out of the way and take him up to the rim so he can put it in. And then he'd always get like all cocky. Yeah! And I'm like, geez, seriously? You had a little help there. Just a little help. And we always tried to keep the game close, and we'd play to 10, 10-9, 10-8, or you got to win by 2. Can I just tell you, and don't tell any of my kids this, I was deceitful and lying to them the entire time. If I ever wanted to take over that game, I would obliterate those little girls. I could seriously swat them into the neighbor's yard on every shot. And if we played to 10, it is 10-0 every time. I'll even give you a point if you hit the freaking rim, and you're not going to, because I can reach up and touch the rim on this thing. It's not a close power struggle. Oh, yes, there were 2 teams on the court. Yes, there is a game going on. But we live in this weird dichotomy as Christians where we give Satan way too much credit, or we don't give him any. And I tell you, the reality is there's a middle ground, that I have an enemy who goes around like a roaring lion seeking how to devour me. He wants to kill my joy. He wants to kill my purpose. He wants to kill my hope of family. He wants to kill my self-worth. He wants to steal from me my value, my identity. He wants to destroy me. And if he can get me naked and cutting in a tomb, well, that's his passion. Why does Jesus allow demons to go into pigs? Well, he's a good Jew. They hate bacon. Maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe there's more than that. Pigs are not kosher. Why do demons run pigs off a cliff and kill them? Why don't they have pigs living in the tombs cutting on themselves for a while? Because pigs are in the image of God. And Jesus wanted to use a teachable moment, because this crowd is going to kick him out, to say, I just want you to know what Satan's end result is. He will use you and he will destroy you. He's there to destroy you. I know it's our sexuality. I know it's our choice. I know it's our lust. I know as long as we're consenting. I know as long as there's. Let me promise you, there is a grand narrative that starts on page 1, an original Big Bang, where God says, yes, I've made the world creation, but you are different. You are the only things on this planet that are made in the image of God, and you will represent this God. And there is a distant second team that I don't need to walk around fearing, but I better know that when that temptation or that area in my life is wide open, there's where it leads to. You're a floating pig, dude. Don't take this bait. And Dan, it would be really cool to ride in the boat with me, but I need you to go home and tell everyone what I've done for you. There's no way we have time to get to it, because we got to jump into the next 2 little stories on here tonight. I know you think I'm closing in prayer, but not a shot. Tonight, homework, you read 3 chapters ahead. I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but in chapter 8, it says once again they come to the region of Decapolis. Decapolis. Where have we heard that? What? Demon Dan? What about him? Oh, that's where he's from. Oh, that's right. It says, then he goes into the air of Decapolis and starts telling people what Jesus did for him. The townspeople say, get out of here. So Jesus crosses the sea and he spends his time in Galilee. 3 chapters later, he comes again by boat. The next time he's on that shoreline, it says so many people come and gather and listen to him that no one has time to eat and no one leaves. This is that great little story where Jesus goes, we have to feed him. And the disciples go, what the heck? We don't have enough food. There's 1, 2, 3, 4,000 people. Some little kid skipped school and had a G.I. Joe lunchbox, and they bring it up and go, this kid came with his dad. His mom packed a lunch, and Jesus goes, that's all we need. And he blesses it, thanks God, and they disperse it, and the fish and the bread never run out. You've been a Christian for a while. You've heard the feeding of the 4,000 or the feeding of the 5,000. I'm not saying this is what happened, but biblically, Jesus comes to Decapolis. Everyone says, you better get in your boat and get out of here. And by the way, the scariest part of this story is not about a naked dude cutting himself. The scariest part of the story is not a guy that lives in the tombs. The scariest part of this story is not a bunch of pigs that jump off a cliff. The scariest part of this story is you serve a God that respects your image of him and free will. And if you don't want him in your life, he will gladly row away. He will. Because these townspeople realize you just messed with our finances and our livelihood. You can go. And Jesus goes, oh, yeah? I don't know what sound oars make. And the next time, 3 chapters later, he comes back. There are 5,000 hanging on every word. And my bet is, in the middle of that crowd, is a dude who wears tank tops. Because he loves showing off the scars as reminders of his story and what happened. The last time I saw you, you told me I had to stay here. I hope you got some stories, because I brought some friends. And they're not leaving, no matter how hungry they get. I hope you understand, Christian, you're not called to share Jesus. You're called to share what he's done for you. You're not smart enough to share Jesus. I know I ain't. Well, can you now explain carbon dating and the rocks that we have from? I can't spell carbon dating. I have no idea. I'm gone. I don't have the apologetics. I don't have the brain. And if you got questions about existing Big Bang and evolutionary expansion, I don't. You want to see these scars? I can show you where I used to sit in the room and just cut myself. I can tell you where I used to live and how I used to live. And I can tell you about a day I encountered him. And I am now clothed, restored dignity. I have a right mind. You can't explain that with carbon dating. You're not called to share Jesus. Go and tell everyone back home what I've done for you. This is the most calories I burned in 2021. Here we go. It's funny because like a third of you laugh and 2/3 of you are like, no, I think it's true. I think that's funny. That's sad. When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side, remember they said, hey, you got to get out of here. So he said, okay, and he got in his boat and he left. He left Demon Dan, go tell people the next time they come, it's a great story. It's in chapter 8. That's your homework. You can go. You can do it again. By the way, living our faith at home is much harder than coming here, isn't it? What's easier, to come to the Jordan and raise your hands and get your little Jesus fingers going? Sit here and have nice and go? Or to go home and respect your mom and dad or mom or dad or stepmom, stepdad, and that sibling that got into your room while you were gone tonight? Some of you are like, oh crap, I didn't lock my room. Let me tell you, the measure of your true faith is going to be back home, and Jesus knows that. That's where it's going to be hardest for us, but that's where we're going to be the most real to others. It's going to be the place of our greatest impact, and when you can live out your Christian faith back home, you're going to kill hypocrisy in your life. Because hypocrisy is coming to the Jordan and playing spiritual, but it's what you do out there with those that you're with is where your real faith is, and Jesus gets that. Oh, it's easy to travel in a boat with the miracle worker. I need you to go home. That's where the truth is going to be seen. I can't keep stopping for these. I got to keep going. When Jesus had again crossed by boat over the other side of the lake, and a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake, and then when the synagogue rulers named Jairus came there, seeing Jairus, he fell at his feet and he pleaded earnestly with him. It's my little daughter. She's dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live. So Jesus went with him. And once again, he crosses. They would kick him out. He goes to the other side. He goes to familiar territory, and the crowd comes because he's been doing miracles there for the last 4 chapters. And they're like, he's back. And everyone comes to see this guy again. As everyone's standing around, shaking hands, kissing babies, this is the Jesus guy. There's commotion in the back, and this time the crowd parts. And once again, a man runs up and falls on his knees. But this is an incredibly different scene. This man is clothed. He's got dignity. He's got position. He's got power. We find out he's a synagogue or the church leader, if you will, in that day and age. And he's not selfish. He's not asking for himself. It's not about his demon or his tombs. She's 12. And about a week and a half ago, we had her miss school because it was a fever. And it's moved from a fever to chest, and she can't breathe. And neighbors have brought over everything they can, and well-meaning family have come, and when we tried to do everything, but she's 12, and that little frame can't lose any more weight. And I've been searching all over for you, and they told me you had gone and you had left. As I'm scouring the countryside, then someone says, you're back here and home, and I've come and I've found you, and he's on his knees. And this is my little girl. And there's a hush that falls over the crowd, because this is what they came for. Will this guy perform like we've heard? And everyone quickly goes, and everyone knows where your church leader lives, in a small town of probably less than 200 in this village. And so people start running ahead, and so does she, and the camera picks her up. We haven't noticed her before because, see, in a crowd this size, she blends in. In a crowd this size, you can fake it. In a crowd this size, you can come in and, well, you can come in and hide, and no one knows what's happening. But the camera picks her up, and it follows her. She, too, knows the way to Jairus' house. Because of the crowd that has come down in the front of the city gates, she runs to the outside. It's up 2 blocks, a small alley down the left, 1.5 blocks. We'll put her on the corner where they will have to turn to get to his house. And she waits. And in that moment, waiting for a crowd to catch up, the screen goes back in time. It shows us enough clips of her where we don't need the details, but we understand why she's there. A woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors. She had spent all the money she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew even worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, if I can just touch his clothes, I can be healed. It's 3 verses that give me more information than I want to know about her. As a woman, as a female, she has had a constant flow of blood for 12 years, a constant menstrual cycle that just won't end. Of course, the weakness and the depletion this must have on her body, but you have to understand, according to Leviticus 15, their law at that time, she's excommunicated. According to Leviticus, if anyone is bleeding or has been around from bleeding, they are unclean. You must wait a period of 7 days before you are allowed to be clean again. It's homework on your own. Leviticus 15, starting at verse 19. And she is under some really stupid laws of the Old Testament. And because of that, no one can touch her. Because of that, she can't go out and sit anywhere publicly, because she has to go to a cafe. And if she sits on a chair, she has to publicly let everyone know this chair is unclean for a period of days. She can't shop in the market, because if people get too close and bump into her, she by Jewish law has to let them know I'm unclean. Well, why in the world are you out here publicly? We're all shopping. How can you? And so she just doesn't. 12 years of not being allowed a single holiday, because every Jewish holiday is wrapped around your Torah, your Pentateuch, your first 5 books of the Bible. They're holy days, holidays. And she's unclean. 12 years she cannot enter the temple or the synagogue. And my God, why are there ridiculous laws in the Bible? Because in 1860, a man named Louis Pasteur first discovered germs. 1860. It wasn't that long ago in history. But 3,100 years before we will discover before my biology buddies and I discovered germs, 3,100 years before that happened, God wrote really stupid laws to his people and said, when it comes to bodily fluids and blood, I'm sorry, you can't mess with them. You're unclean for a period until you stop bleeding. Anything you touch or bled on or sat on or laid on is unclean. This won't make sense for 3,000 years. But I'm the original Big Bang who made science, and science hasn't even been developed yet. Just trust me, kids. This will save your life without you knowing it. Take a look at the history of civilizations outside the Bible. Watch what happened with the plagues, disease, pestilence, bubonic. Watch the spread of those across the Middle East, move around Israel, and then keep infecting people. But a little nation of Israel never got wiped out. Why? Stupid rules in the Bible. Kids, this is from Dad and Crazy Uncle. It doesn't make sense to me either. I want you to love whoever you want to love. I want you to have sex with whoever you want to have sex with. Be smart, be safe, but it's 2021. We understand what smart and safe is. Enjoy yourself, enjoy your bodies. To deprive you or someone else from that is just stupid. It is. And that is my heart. But now I come back. Now I come back to almost 5,000 years and go, every single one of your dumb rules has made a lot of sense. So I'm at another place in life, in our culture, where I can pretend like I'm God, I'm smarter. The last 2,000 years, people just misunderstood the Bible, and we're bright enough now to know differently. Or I can once again choose to submit to his rules, and as a kid go, Dad, I don't get this one. But if this is your view and design of sex and sexuality, I choose to trust you over me, because I'm a puny God. She has been caught up in the backwash of brilliant laws that will still wait 1,800 years to be discovered why. And now we know why she stands on the corner. She will wait for a gap. And in that moment, she will come up behind and reach out and just touch him, because she thinks if I touch him, I can be healed. I've heard the stories. This isn't a what, it's a who. And I just want to touch this who. But she's risking everything. Everything. Immediately, her bleeding stopped. She felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. I can't even imagine. I can't. 12 years of a constant flow of blood. Every penny she had spent at the hands of a great deal of many doctors. My God, don't let your mind go there for long, but the scripture is begging us to understand the situation. What type of horrific medical rape and torture has this woman subjected herself to under the guise of first century medicine in such a private area? No wonder she bleeds. What is left of this woman's soul and value if that has been her history? No wonder she will risk going out in public, even around a crowd, to touch. And if they kill me, kill me. I'm better dead. And everything that society and laws are built on hinges on this moment. And she touches, and immediately she knows it's healed. It's gone. She turns to leave, and it happens. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "Well, you see the people crowding against you," his disciples answered, "and yet you can ask, 'Who touched me?'" But he kept looking around to see who had done it. Immediately, as Jesus is walking to Jairus' house, immediately he knows that just happened, and he stops. "Who just touched me?" And I love the disciples. It doesn't say which one, but we know it's Peter. They're all gathered in here. What do you mean? There's 6 of us touching you right now. Hey, everyone that touched Jesus since we left the beach, raise your hand. There you go, 1, 2, 3, about $1.25. Can we go now? Jairus is out in front. It's his 12-year-old girl. We don't know how many hours or days he has spent trying to find Jesus, but Jesus was busy out in the lake calming a storm, other side, a bunch of pigs, naked demon Dan. By the time he catches up with him, we don't know what condition this 12-year-old girl is, and now he stopped. He's like, whoa, we're going this way. And now he sees the back of Jesus' head, and Jesus wants to know, who just touched me? Every eye in the crowd is glued on him except for one pair. She has touched. She has found healing. She is trying to leave, and she is frozen with those words, "Who just touched me?" And now the people next to her have got to realize, where are you going? Something just happened. And you're the only one facing the other way. She's got to look over her shoulder, and my bet is he is staring right at her. And she knows she has completely gone outside the boundaries of the law. She has taken what is not hers. She has not asked. She is selfish. She has stopped a processional to a 12-year-old girl. My God, lady, you've been bleeding for 12 years. You could have waited a half hour. You could have stayed outside the house and asked him once he left. And her greatest nightmare, he does it in front of the town. He calls her out. Hasn't she been through enough? Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came, fell at his feet, trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. Circle, highlight, and underline. In front of the crowd, she now has to admit what she did and why, and 12 years, and what a lot of doctors have done to her. And she is terrified. She can't hold up her body weight. She has collapsed in the dirt in front of him, and she tells the entire thing. Can you imagine the crowd's response? Oh, come on, she has what a mosquito. Oh. If she's bleeding, if she's unclean and she trusts him, what is him? He's unclean. I don't know what to do with Leviticus if it applies to God or not. We're just jacked up right now. And the whole city's in an uproar. Hasn't she been through enough? Doesn't Jesus know who she is and what she's about? Why can't he let her go? For the exact same reason tonight, he will not let you leave this room unless you want him to roll away. He is so sick and tired about you giving him a part of you. Jesus did not die on the cross to become a part of your life. Oh, please, if that was taught to you in a Sunday school class, can you please erase that? Jesus did not die on the cross to be part of your life. God wants no part of you. He will take all of you or none of you. But he did not die to be a part of your life and a part of your American dream and a part of what you want your hands and boats and nets on so he can bless it. That's not why he came. It just isn't. He's a much bigger God than to play part of your life. He will invite you, regardless of you and what you've done and what you come through and what tombs and what carving and what's been done to you, to be part of his. But that will take all. And after she tells the truth, she cringes for what's about to be laid on her. And he said to her, daughter, you know, out of all the words that were being used of her in the crowd that day, that wasn't one of them. Everything that this woman expected to get, and she braced herself for in the dirt, that was the furthest from her mind. Oh, do you see what he did? Everyone now knows her whole truth. And let me tell you what I think. Daughter, that one's mine. You have a problem with her. You've got a problem with me. I got two of those. I understand the heart of a dad. Everything I am, everything I have, it's just wrapped up into them. I got a boy too, that's just like different. But daughter, one of mine's been dating a dude for over a year now. I like him more than I try to admit. But he still ain't a husband, he's just boyfriend. There's still a whole element of trust then that I'm like, dude, you don't understand what you have. You don't understand what's out with you at night. You don't understand who you're driving with. I know for you, you found the most amazing girlfriend. She's way out of your league. But for me, that's daughter. That's daughter. Are you taking notes on this, Cody? Okay. Good. This whole night was just for him. Your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. Look, kiddo, daughter, you won't find me walking the streets for much longer. You won't have a cloak to come up and hold on to. It wasn't a magic coat. It was your faith. You can find me anytime you want me. It's your faith that healed you. And I don't think he said this next line to her. I think he said it to the crowd. Go in peace. Shalom. Shalom. It's that phenomenal Hebrew phrase. Physically, mentally, emotionally, relationally, sexually, you have peace. You have wholeness. When she touched his clothes, was she physically healed? When she touched his clothes, was she healed? Physically. Just physically. Will she ever be able to tell that story? How many nights will she lay awake with guilt and shame because she took something from the Son of God that she shouldn't have? Oh, she may have a little bit of life back, but now she's going to dread heaven. And my God, what's going to happen the day I show up and I get what I deserve? Relationally, who's going to believe this? Is she huggable? Is she touchable? But he wants everyone to know. And he wants her to know, I love you too much to let you walk out of here physically healed. I want you socially, spiritually, relationally, and sexually whole. And now that the entire town knows, and now that the entire town knows that I know, and now that the entire town knows that you're my daughter, you have peace. Socially, you better welcome her back and you better throw a party. Relationally, there better be some hugs the moment I turn around and start to walk off this scene. Sexually, well, guys, She's open for marriage. No one would touch her. No one would be with her. But right now, you can have a family. You can have a life again. Now you have shalom. So many of you tonight are coming to God with prayers of finances or prayers of healing or prayers physically. And God goes, yeah, I get that. But you don't understand. I want so much more for you than just what your prayer is. This is the abundant life he promised. We don't want the abundant life. I want him to bless my life. And Jesus did not die on the cross to bless your life. He did not die on the cross to be a part of it. I am not going to be part of a physical healing. I will call you out, and I know this is terrifying, but you will never, ever, ever have to tell your story again for the rest of your life because it's done right here on the spot, and you are freed, and you are forgiven, and you are daughter. You are made in my image. And if anybody has an issue with that, they have an issue with me. Oh my gosh, I forgot about the little girl. While Jesus was still speaking, some men came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue ruler. Your daughter is dead. They said, you don't need to bother the teacher anymore. And ignoring what they said, Jesus told the synagogue ruler, you don't have to be afraid, just believe. You don't have to be afraid, just believe. And there are two realities in your world, and there are two truths. You can believe the reality of what you see and what you know and what you feel about yourself and what has happened, and that is true, and you're allowed to live there. You can live in your own tomb. Cutting and carving isn't new. There's inward hurts and pains, and we take it out on ourselves because I can't get to the core of what it is. And you can sneak around and try to touch Jesus, but you know who you are and you know what you've done. And those are true. Your daughter's dead. That's true. But you can also take me into that true situation. And you have a choice. My God has got a pretty phenomenal reputation of doing great things with dead things. That's kind of his MO. So he did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue ruler, Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, why all the commotion? Why all the wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep. And they all laughed at him. How ignorant do you think we are? We know when someone's gone. And the little girl didn't make it. And after he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were there with him, and he went in where the child was, and he took her by the hand, and he said to her, Talitha Kaume, which means, little girl, it's time to get up. And immediately the girl stood up and walked around. She was 12 years old. And at this they were completely astonished, and he gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this. And he told them to give her something to eat. And as Jairus walks into the house, his wife leaves the side of the bed for the first time in days. And she buries her head into his big, broad chest. He grabs her by the back of the neck and the small of the waist. And for the first time, Dad sees his little girl lifeless. And it is beside this embrace, the Son of God just steps and kneels. And he touches her cool fingers. Talitha Kaume. And the house is filled with, we don't have adjectives. There hasn't been enough human history to see your child come back to life to have a word for it. I don't know if it's fear, horror, shock, amazement, bewilderment, excitement. But the house is stone cold silent. And this poor little girl is just staring at mom and dad. So Jesus breaks the silence. You're going to want her to fix her some macaroni and cheese. It's in the Greek. It's every little girl's favorite. Oh, and before I go, don't let anyone outside this house know what happened. I set it up on the way in. She was asleep. She was in a deep coma. Jesus, the creator, giver of life, he played loosely with that definition, but it works. I brought her out of her sleep. That's the story. A bleeding woman has to tell her whole story. And now the Son of God has the greatest moment ever to take his reputation to the moon, and he will not let it be told. Because he wants the same for both. Oh, he physically gave her life back. But the moment a Jewish crowd outside finds out she raised from the dead, she is a zombie for the rest of her life. She will dread recess in the 6th grade because she will constantly just walk the playground by herself. She will have to endure 7th and 8th grade boys and the jokes and the torment. He gave her life, but it's not much of one. She will be into her 40s, shopping at the market. Some little girl will just inadvertently walk up and she'll bend down and go, well, hello there. Just to have her mom grab the child and jerk her back and say, that is the dead woman. Don't ever get close to her again. And she's heard it enough times, but you don't get used to that. She will just gently put down her basket of fruit that she's collected, and she will quickly walk away so the tears can fall in private. And the Son of God is more concerned with her prom night than his precious reputation. And he will protect it. This is the image of God. It is a who, not a what. And a naked demoniac will fall on his knees and scream out. And this is what your enemy wants to do with the image of God. And Jesus says, you've run to me and fallen on your knees. With mere words, I can clothe and restore and bring dignity. And you have a story now out of a hopeless life. It is a well-to-do dressed man that falls on his knees and begs for a problem at home. And Jesus says, I have time for you too, because you are in the image of God. It is a broken woman that outwardly sits in the Jordan, and she can pretend like the rest of us that she has it all together. But inwardly, she is scared to death that you find out who she is and what she's done and what's been done to her. And she too falls on her knees. And she finds her whole story is met with daughter. This one's mine. And just in case you lost track of Mark telling you this is a God that speaks to storms of hurricane force and they obey. This is a God that commands legions of the enemy and they must flee. This is a God that heals incurable diseases and raises from the dead. Just in case you missed these stories put together to show you who you are, he closes with, and he's a God that wants more for you than you could fathom or believe. He wants to protect you. But there are stupid laws in the Bible that don't match your and my understanding of how life should be lived. And you have a choice to be child or not. And the scariest thing about the image of God is he's also giving us free will, and he will roll away from us if we would rather have him just be a part of our life and bless it. Whew. The stories end, but the lives continue. And somewhere 3 hills away, A man sits in a corner cafe in a tank top, and he waits for someone to notice the scars on his torso and arms. He's not going to share Jesus. He's going to share what Jesus did. No one can argue that. The neighbors have tried to sleep that night, but the noise outside has kept them up. They too were part of the crowd outside the house, so they dare not tell them to go to bed. Mom and dad knows their little girl needs rest, but she has got more energy than ever before. So she will stand in front in that barren spot in the grass and just do her jump rope into the dark of night. And mom and dad hold each other. They don't have to share words because they shared an experience that day. They still can't fathom what happened. And 2 blocks down, just inside the city gate, you'll hear the creaking noise of chairs being pulled out. The market tables have been put up for the night, but a woman has decided at 3 a.m. to unstack them. She's tried to sleep, but she can't. She just wants to sit in each one because she can. For 12 years, she hasn't been able to. And tonight, she can. The crowd goes home satisfied they heard a Jesus story. That's not what the story is about. The story is about those who have stepped out of the crowd and have fallen on their knees in the most unlikely of situations and circumstances, who can never deserve, earn, live up to, or hope for God's love and mercy. But they don't have to deserve it, earn it, live up to, or hope for. They are made in the image of Dad, who desperately wants more for them than they could possibly understand. And every page of the book proves it. So forgive me if we come to outdated old laws that don't make sense yet to us today. I will surrender as son and say, I don't get it, I don't like it. But I've learned to trust Dad. And from a crazy old uncle, I hope you have too. You will close with worship tonight. Not so you can stand and be religious, but maybe so some of you could sit and kneel and say, Dad, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done holding on to my nets and boats. I'm done holding on to the darkness. I'm done holding on to this hurt and pain of what I've done or what's been done to me. I'm done. I'm done trying to come and pretend like I'm part of the crowd and I have it together. Tonight I want to reach out and touch you. You will be surprised that no matter who you are and what you've done in your whole truth, you will simply hear these words, daughter, son, this one's mine. And this is why the cross was necessary, because you couldn't have ever done it on your own. It is one day in the life of Jesus. This is the image of the God you have and what he thinks of you because you're created in his image. I think there's prayer in the back. Do we do that in the Jordan? I'm an invited guest. I got carded at the door. I barely made it in. I don't know what I'm talking about. There's nothing magical about this stage or up here, but if you want to come up here and kneel, there's just something about knowing if the creator of the universe was in this room, what posture do you think we'd have? Yeah, flat face. Oh God, no lightning, no lightning, no lightning, no lightning, no lightning. Pick Cody, pick Cody, pick Cody, pick Cody. There's something sometimes physically, posture I need to put to spiritually and just say, I'm trying to worship you spiritually, but I'm not worshiping you with the truth physically, emotionally, relationally, sexually. I'm not. And he will not be part of your life. He will take all of it gladly or let you have it. If you want to pray, come up here. If you want prayer, there's prayer in the back. I'm standing back there. You don't need someone to pray with. If you've never made a decision to follow Christ, it's simply saying, God, I need you. Thank you for dying on the cross for me. I'm done playing games. I'm all yours. I have no clue what that even means yet. But from this day on, I want to be son or daughter. I'm yours. Father, may this be a night that in the remainder songs, God, we just do some business with you. May this be a night, Father God, that we don't just automatically jump up and worship God. Worship is a response of our heart and our mind back to you because of what you've done. So God, may this be a moment that we respond to what we've just heard. We respond to your story, to you as God, and to understand if that's the way you dealt with people then, that's the way you deal with us now. May we take these moments, and before we get back to our crazy hurry, busyness, and noise, and before we get back to ourself or the person sitting next to us, may we respond however we need to respond, knowing and seeing already, God, how you will respond to us. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't deserve it. I will never, ever live up to you. So just thank you for grace and mercy. Thank you that this is all done at Christ's expense, not mine. Father, in these moments, may you allow us to simply individually and corporately just respond